Welcome to Twisted Threes. Please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next Twisted Stories. To support the channel, you can visit us at twistedthrees.com. Now let's see how twisted the world is today. Ape Canyon is a narrowing gorge sitting just to the northeast of Washington's Mount St. Helens, where one of the most famous Bigfoot attacks in the cryptozoological canon is said to have taken place in 1924, eventually giving the nature spot its name. According to a story that was widely run in Washington and Oregon newspapers at the time, it was on a summer night in July 1924 at a small cabin housing a group of miners came under attack by a gang of wild ape men. The 5 miners, all of whom survived the incident and seemed convinced of its facts, were asleep when the attack started. Beck would go on to write a book about their experience that night, speculating that the ape men were in fact extradimensional beings, but some more grounded theories have also been posited. The most popular explanation for the sensational story is that it was a gang of local youth that were bombarding the cabin with rocks as youths are wont to do. Thanks to the acoustics of the canyon, it is possible that their voices were made to seem beastly, or extradimensional, as it were. The site of the cabin is no longer known, but Ape Canyon continues to be a popular hiking destination despite being significantly altered by the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. It seems that neither hordes of otherworldly Bigfoots nor active volcanoes can keep people away from this lovely spot. It's one of the Northwest's most familiar in-jokes. Sasquatch can be found on hipster mugs and t-shirts, and hairy beasts roam the streets on Halloween. A popular music festival is named after the creature. As a result, it's been largely forgotten that intrepid investigators in these parts took the mystery seriously for years, tracking giant footprints and collecting reports of freaky whistling noises heard in the forest. No one knows for sure when the Northwest's Bigfoot legend truly began, but the most successful launching pad for the public's obsession with it is known, a battle that supposedly took place in a narrow gorge on the east flank of St. Helens. The gorge is now called Ape Canyon. In the summer of 1924, a group of gold prospectors stumbled out of the woods, shaking and glassy-eyed, to tell of 7-foot-tall ape-like animals attacking them with boulders. Fred Beck, Gabe Lefevre, John Peterson, Marion Smith, and Smith's son Roy described coming upon gorilla men near where they had built a small cabin for their gold hunting forays. Seemingly out of nowhere, the cabin they had hand-built began being hit by huge stones that were being thrown by mountain devils on all sides. The men began to shoot at the monsters, and the attacks would cease, only to start back up again minutes later. At one point one of the supposed Sasquatches reached into the cabin through a hole in the construction and took hold of an axe, but was stymied before he could pull it out of the building. They claimed they were 8 miles from Spirit Lake and they encountered 4 of the giant animals moving through the forest with erect, human-like strides. They are covered with long, black hair, the Oregonian reported, relating the descriptions offered by the men. Their ears are about 4 inches long and stick straight up. They have 4 toes, short and stubby. The witnesses estimated each animal weighed about 400 pounds. Taken aback at the sight of the huge beasts, Fred Beck fired his rifle at one of the creatures, and, struck 3 times, the wounded animal toppled off a cliff. Beck reportedly claimed years later that another member of the party fired the shots. The violence proved a mistake. That night, the men said, they were awakened when huge stones began clomping against the outside of their cabin. Then they heard and felt giant bodies slamming against the walls and door. The ape men were seeking revenge. The beasts eventually tore a hole in the roof, allowing them to target Beck. Many of the rocks fell through a hole in the roof, and 2 of the rocks struck Beck, one of them rendering him unconscious for nearly 2 hours, the Oregonian reported. Finally, the prospectors said, the sun began to come up, which prompted the animals to break off their attack and slip away. The men poked their heads out the door and when they decided the coast was clear, ran out of the woods. Tales of giant ape men weren't exactly new to the area. Hunters, lumberjacks, and prospectors had seen massive footprints now and again over the years, and Native Americans in the area had spoken of mountain devils. But few people seriously worried about the possibility of huge, unknown creatures being out there in the forest. That changed when the gold hunters returned to civilization that summer day in 1924. The dramatic story of their battle with large, human-like beasts was irresistible and thus hard for people to dismiss. With news reports and word of mouth causing a local sensation, the U.S. Forest Service decided to investigate.